I grew up in a small village in rural England. It was one of those places where all the old people flocked to after retirement, and there was basically fucking nothing there. I mean, I used to have to travel about an hour each day to and from school. It was stupid. There weren't many other children there, as most of the other residents were about 60 plus, but I was cool with this. I'd always been an imaginative child, and I had imaginary friends to play with. But still, imaginary friends are no substitute for the real thing. And when a new family with a kid moved into the cottage next to mine, I was overjoyed. I was really nervous about going to see her at first. I remember, in case she didn't like me and I'd gotten my hopes up for nothing. In the end, it took my mother telling me to go over there with a plate of biscuits for them, for me to get up enough courage to approach the house. I knocked on the door, and she answered. And God knows how she didn't think I was a complete idiot from the mess I made of my introduction. I was tripping over my words like I was a retard or something. Luckily for me, though, she just laughed and asked if I wanted to go inside. We became best friends fairly quickly from then on. Her name was Bethan, and we were pretty much inseparable. Even in school, we would always stick together, going so far as to take the same GCSE subjects, so we could be in each other's classes. The only thing I didn't like about her was when she asked me over her house. Something about her house. I don't know, it just freaked me out. For one, the rooms never seemed to be as well lit as they should be. I mean, they had normal ceiling lights and a shitload of lamps. But there were always really dark shadows in the rooms, even when they were lit up. It was kinda like the effect you get if you shine a torch into a dark room. You get an area of light, but it just makes everything around that look even darker. For another, there was a complete lack of noise. I know that sounds stupid, and normally you would expect to hear me bitching about how there were strange noises in the night, but hell, I grew up in one of those old cottages. I know full well that most of them make fucking creepy noises in the night. Or even just the noise of the central heating cooling off or something. This house, though, in the nights, everything went absolutely silent. It was eerie. I once stayed over when there was a storm outside, gales belting at the window, and rain pouring down, and the rooms were still bathed in utter, complete silence. It was so fucking eerie, I'm not even joking. At the time, though, I chalked all of these up to superstition or something, and when she asked me to stay over, I would just laugh and say I didn't want to because of her family, who were all from someplace in Wales, would just gang up on the Englishmen and say things in Welsh at me again. Eventually, she stopped asking me to come over, and seemed content just staying over at my house instead. After a few months, I forgot why I was even scared of going over to her place, and began to believe my own excuse about her family. That was until she knocked on our door in the middle of the night, sopping wet from the rain outside, and asked to come over for the night. When I asked her what was wrong, she just shook her head and said she would like to have a shower before she caught a chill. I pointed her straight to the shower and went to get one of my mother's old dresses that she'd worn a few times before, all the while wondering what the hell was going on. Half an hour later, warm and dry, she told me what had spooked her so much that she had to leave in the middle of the night and come straight to mine. She explained to me how she had noticed strange things about the house since she'd moved in. There was the lights and the silence, like I'd noticed, but there were other things too. Stuff like her pet hamster disappearing. Her parents had said it just ran away, but she said she knew the cage was locked. She said she walked into a dark spot in a room and got a short, intense headache that was over as soon as it began. She chalked these up just as strange occurrences and then put them to the back of her mind. She stopped speaking for a few minutes, visibly trying to recover herself, and finally, after I'd made her a cup of tea, she managed to speak. She said she had woken in the middle of the night, suddenly, as if a loud noise had startled her. Peering into the darkness, she'd seen nothing, so she'd simply turn over to go back to sleep. That's when she noticed something. Her bed was an ancient steel thing, and every time you moved, it made a quiet screeching noise. However, this time it made no noise whatsoever. That was when she realized the absence of the sound of her own breathing. She realized that she could literally hear absolutely nothing. Freaked out now, in case there was something wrong with her ears, she'd gone to turn on the bedroom lamp, only to find it not working. She'd lain there for a few minutes then, before working up the courage finally to get up and switch on the ceiling light. The fact that she couldn't even hear her own feet on the bedroom floor made her more worried. But it wasn't until she tried the bedroom light switch and found it not working that she'd begun to panic. She turned around, hoping to go back to bed and hopefully sleep through this whole thing, and said she'd been faced with something out of a terrible nightmare. Tall, with long spindly legs. It was bent almost in half under the low ceiling of her room, its featureless face inches away from her own. She said it was utterly featureless and seemingly insubstantial, like it was made of black shadow or something. She said that's when she'd ran straight out of the door and over to my place, and I put my arms around her crying form to comfort her. That was an hour ago. The sound of her crying stopped soon enough, though I could still see her sobbing. And soon after, I stopped hearing the wind outside and the sounds of my parents sleeping upstairs. My own voice is gone, like hers, and I can no longer hear the sound of my breathing. The lights have begun to flicker. I don't know how much longer I'll have power to keep typing this on a soundless keyboard. I can see a black shape out of the window, by the tree. It really does look like a shadow. Oh God. I think it's looking at me. Can't look away, can't look away. It's gonna come in the dark. I think the power is dying.